Get going whenever you're ready.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks, everybody. It's been a couple months since we last met. And during our last meeting, near the tail end of it, we started talking about more AI applications for Section 508. So I thought it might be helpful to review a little bit on AI in Section 508. Some of the things we've already talked about, maybe some things we haven't yet talked about, and some suggestions going forward, because it seems like in multiple agencies, AI is really taking off not just in Section 508, but for anything and everything we do as librarians, as the documents we look at. If you're in a research department or an office, there's probably going to be some conversations about AI happening, if not already. So let me go ahead and share my screen. This will be a very brief overview, but some of the things that we have talked about already with AI, we've looked at AI as a tool for remediation. And I can't recall if it was last time or the time before, but we looked over some applications like SilkTide, Axe, Wave, a bunch of other website add-ons that you can use to check if your website is accessible. These are some of the more popular tools that we've looked at, and there are links included. So I'm not going to go through any demos of these since we did that in a previous meeting, but just as a recap, these are some of the items that we looked at. AI seems to be really popular among users of tools looking to remediate websites and things like that. Going forward, AI is also having a lot of other applications, including for automated tagging items, generating alt text, text recognition, semantic analysis, language simplification. I remember that was one of the things that popped up last time on language simplification. For example, if you have differently abled individuals with different levels of reading comprehension, having that simplified language is one of the up and coming things that people are really suggesting we do to make things more accessible, especially in the alt text. Error detection and correction, templates and style guides, and also AI training that is feeding documents and items into an AI system so that it knows what to look for and make those changes. So again, very quickly kind of speeding through some of the AI uses for remediation, also natural language processing for accessibility. It helps simplify complex language so you can feed things into it and helps make it easily understandable for individuals with disabilities. And other tools can include captioning and transcription, speech recognition, screen readers, chatbots, and virtual assistants, all getting an input that creates and generates an output that makes things a little bit easier for people to understand. Also, AI tools for video accessibility, not just for websites, or your website may have a video. We did actually have one report that came into us at our library that had a video included in it. So that was very interesting to see. It included a PowerPoint presentation and a video and things like that. And so making sure that there was captions generated for what was shown on the video, I think that was the first time we'd ever dealt with anything like that before. And there are AI tools for that for videos. YouTube has its automatic captions. There's Google Cloud, there's Otter AI, there's a script, there's a whole bunch of services out there, both paid and free, that can do this for you. So I'm not sure if anyone does anything with these services, but there may come a point in your library or your research office where you may need to start considering implementing some of these. Also, assisted interfaces is another key topic. I think we're all pretty familiar with like Alexa and Siri. Microsoft has Cortana, Google Assistant. You tell it, you ask it a question, it puts out a response, generated by AI, what it thinks you're going to want to hear. And those are getting really good and really creepy, really fast. Like all of it is recording the information that you put into it to generate a better output. And we're going to get into the creepiness scale of that and what that means for liability and for legal, items as we go along. So I think we all have some experience with screen readers like JAWS or NVDA when we're remediating documents. For the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, we use NVDA when we go through documents. So I'm not sure if anyone has a preferred screen reader, if they've found something that works better for them. But for us, we do NVDA. So I'd like to, once we get to kind of the open mic session, I'd like to hear what other people use for screen readers. If you found a difference, if there's one you favor over another, is there even really a difference? I think we'd like to hear and have that conversation. Also, AI-powered alternative input methods like eye and head tracking, predictive text, and also brain-computer interfaces. There was a recent news story, I think it was Elon Musk had implanted, well, not him personally, but his team had implanted a chip in the brain of someone who had a disability, and the first thing they did was play a computer game, Civilization 6, on the PC with just their mind controlling all the turns and the moves and everything that you would do in that computer game. So it is really, really quickly advancing as far as what people can do with these kinds of technologies and interfaces that are helping with accessibility. Side effects, that's a great question. I think a lot of studies are going to be done about that to see if it is safe. But right now, they're trialing a lot of things with humans, and we'll just kind of wait and see what happens. So lastly, some AI issues. And I think this is where we could have a good conversation and see what issues were coming up. And maybe if your organization has a policy on AI, or if it doesn't, what would a model policy on AI for remediation look like? With AI, you're going to run into so many issues like privacy concerns. Someone's collecting all the data that you're putting into it. Where is that data being stored? Is it secure? Who is using that data? Is it going to be sold off, to another AI company or maybe someone more nefarious? It's going to have recordings of your voice, of your text, of any input that you make into the system. So again, is there a system in place for privacy if you're using these AI tools, especially in a government or public facing environment? Are there federal regulations? Are there state regulations? Do we know what those regulations are if we decide, oh, I'm going to use this AI tool? As an anecdote, we hosted a meeting with some of our colleagues at the State Department of Transportation, and we were experimenting with a new AI tool to record meeting minutes. And we thought, well, this will be an interesting thing to try. And we had some folks who were none too happy that we're using AI to record some of the things that they were saying. And so making sure that you have a permissions policy, that everyone is on board with this, and even if they are, maybe they don't know what this information is being used for. So legally, for liability, it is always good to have some kind of policy statement in mind before you experiment on anything with AI involving yourself or anyone else within your agency. Other issues that come up include bias in AI algorithms. For example, what samples are being used to train the AI? Is it coming from specific groups that may be ignoring issues from other groups? Historical biases, confirmation and selection biases. Essentially, any kind of bias you can think of could feed into the training data that an AI uses, and it could completely gloss over or miss areas that you may take for granted, and it just didn't make it into the training data. Also, a need for transparency. We're talking about user trust, accountability, inclusivity in the development process. Who is getting a say in what goes into these AI models? Who are the drivers behind this? And is it an equitable approach? Lastly, we've kind of touched on legal concerns like liability and regulatory compliance. The federal government has its own rules about, WCAG and accessibility. Are there rules out there, federal regulations governing AI yet, and what we can do as public entities? So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I've gone on a little bit, but these are just some of the items to consider when thinking about developing AI and using AI in your workplace. So I would like to throw it out to the group. We have a couple more items to cover, but I'd like to throw it out to the group and see, has anyone done anything with AI in your agency? And if so, is this with a policy? Are you developing a policy on AI, or has anyone experimented at all, using any kind of AI, be it for remediation or anything like this? And before I continue, I want to plug Katie Woodman, our other librarian. She is co-chairing a uh, NTKN community of practice on AI, and I'm sure she'll have some things to say about that later on. We'll get to that later on, but I also just wanted to throw that out there for the group. Your thoughts on AI and remediation? Has anyone used it? Does anyone have any policies? Or is this all just brand new? No one's even touched AI yet.
Hi, Michael. I am unaware of any type of official policy with respect to either the University of Texas or Texas Department of Transportation. I know that with respect to AI in my own work day, I avoid it as much as possible.
Hmm. Yeah. Have you had some experiences with it, or just what you've read, or kind of as a general rule? Like, do you see other folks at tech stock kind of avoiding that as well, or like, what is your reasoning?
Well, I don't think it can be trusted.
Hmm.
You know, when you hear stories about people trying to prompt these AI chat things to do certain things, and then it comes back with just incredibly incorrect answers, and then it's not really sure from where it's getting this information. And this is, get off my lawn type of thing. But yeah, I'm not sure if other people at TxDOT are using it. I'm willing to bet that some of them are. Some of them probably have a more positive attitude than I do.
Yeah, that's fair. I think there's a lot to be wary about AI. This is straying a little bit off topic from Section 508, but I think just for librarian purposes, I know some folks are using AI to help with lit reviews and summaries and plugging in their research documents and generating summaries and seeing the state of the practice from that end. And so AI seems like it could, remove a lot of the legwork for that and even some accessibility issues, as we mentioned, generating alt text and processing and making things more accessible for folks with certain disabilities, transcription services. So I mean, it's a double-edged sword for sure. So does anyone else have any other comments or anything they're doing at their agency relative to AI? Or maybe you're not doing anything and we'd still like to hear that too. Like, who is even not even considering using AI? Maybe it's just too hot button of an issue. Yeah, Beth.
Thanks. So I'm interested in using AI if it's safe, but at the in the federal government, of course, we have to get approval to use some of these technologies, and it's not an easy process. One of the things I was interested in for accessibility was finding a transcript service to put a kind of a closed captioning or create a transcript of some kind on a video that had been recorded in the past. And so the response to that when I sent it to our IT department was that they recommended Go Transcript,
Hmm.
but we have to do a request for technology to be able to use it. So that was so even setting aside my own concerns about AI, there are also some obstacles to using it if we do have ideas to use it, at least for me.
Yeah, that's a great point. And at least since you're in the federal government, you're going to get that insight and they're going to tell you exactly what you should be doing relative to it. So in a way, that's good since you'll, hear it straight from the horse's mouth. Here's our policy. So that should be good.
Yes.
So whatever happens to you, let us know. I think we're all kind of anxious to hear.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Sure. And Gabby, I see your hand up.
Yeah, well, since I don't work in the government, but I work for a corporation, and espionage and the stealing of company secrets is a huge concern with us. That AI, it's like, no. And there's nothing internally at this time. And of course, if you want any software or any technology, you have to go through this long, long, long approval process with IT and a business case. And, if our engineers are using AI at home and asking questions, that's again, that's an ethics violation. So, I mean, I use AI in my personal stuff. Yeah, it helps to summarize a few things, but I'm not doing it for work at all. It's it's kind of like we just have to wait and see, because how you control the access and the information that's getting out there is just too sensitive for us. So that's my 2 cents worth.
That's a great point. Like it's interesting on the public sector, we don't really think of us dealing with anything too secretive or like all the research is public, it's out there, publicly funded. But as a corporate librarian from the corporate standpoint, that's got to be such a different reality and environment. Like anything you say, like could be copyrighted material or R&D or something like that. So yeah, that's a great perspective.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're always like telling our engineers at a conference, loose lips sink ships, you know? And I mean, it's just, and so it's an ongoing issue, and RIT just just to keep the bad actors at bay just enough, whether they could be internal or external. So yeah, it's a different ball game in a
Wow.
corporation.
Honestly,
Mhm.
that sounds like it'd be a great perspective and a topic to even talk about the difference between corporate and public librarians and the things you have to be mindful of versus what, public librarians have to
Sure.
be mindful of. So, but
Yeah, yeah.
I do see
That would be a
Lamara
good
and
topic.
Michael's. I do
Yeah.
see Lamara and Michael's hands up. I want to, yeah, go ahead, Lamara.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of what Gabby said. With our IT department, anything that we have to do takes a long time. I've heard a few rumblings about AI, but I'm personally not using it. Nobody in our unit is. But if we have to do anything, it has to go through. If you bought, somebody mentioned buying software. If you bought software, it would have to be vetted by our DIT, which could take months. So, it's not like you can just say, I want to get this and like the next week they approve it.
Yeah, having that approval process is definitely a good thing to let everybody know what anyone's doing with AI. So in a way, maybe that's a good thing. So that's interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
When you were talking about automatically generating alt text, I remembered an email I sent you about something I learned about Microsoft Word. And if people are creating reports in Microsoft Word, it defaults to adding alt text to images automatically.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way that you can go into your own personal settings and you can toggle that option on or off. But if Microsoft Word is doing that for you, the descriptions that will be automatically inserted are so vague and inadequate, it's ridiculous. As an example, and this is a direct quote, the alt text added to an image was a picture containing text, screenshot, line, plot. That was it. And if you're doing an accessibility check within Microsoft Word, it will indicate to you that alt text has been generated automatically, and then it recommends that you go and double check. But if a person doesn't do that and they convert it to a PDF, the accessibility check on that PDF will think that the alt text is fine because it's just checking that it exists. And in some cases, you're having to go back into the PDF and replace alt text that was automatically generated because it's not doing anybody any good. So this is something to be aware of if your research teams are creating their reports with Word documents that will then be converted into a PDF.
Yeah, great point. You can never remove that human element for sure for AI. Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
I think there was someone ahead of me. I am number 2. Or were you through, Michael?
I'm good.
You good? Okay. I just thought it was interesting. When I was poking around on LinkedIn last night, trying to do whatever I was doing, there was an ad that came across my screen for people to help train AI. And this group is so not AI. And I'm neutral. I think it's got potential. And then there are job descriptions out there for people to train AI, and the pay is very good depending on what position you get. It's anywhere from $25 to $40 an hour. So, kind of curious what you think of that. And maybe we can save that for the AI community of practice. That's quite off topic for this one.
No worries. I think it definitely touches, there's going to need to be training for AI as it gets more involved in accessibility. I see a lot of folks with disabilities, in that community kind of reaching out for the AI tools because it does so many things that helps their situation. So yeah, it can be a lucrative thing. It could be a business. So yeah, it seems like it's going to happen no matter what we do. This almost feels like, on the edge of like the .com, like when all the internet kind of took off. This almost seems like another, big thing that's going to take off. And whether we have policies or we adapt to that or not, or we just, decide not to engage with it, it's going to be interesting to see how it all, winds up. I do want to get to the chat as well. Penny posted, not 508 related, but this came across TrainLib. The Wyoming Department of Transportation librarian indicated that a notice is now included on their research reports. No artificial training, any use of this publication to train generative artificial intelligence technologies to generate text is expressly prohibited. The authors, contractor, and YDOT reserve all rights to license uses of this work for generative AI training and development of machine learning language models. Here at WJE, we are experimenting with Copilot, and a test group has access. I was included as being one of the testers. So that's a great, that's a great addition here, because what if someone wants to use the research reports that you use for Section 508 and remediation to feed into an AI tester, either for content or for training on remediation? Is there anything that would prevent someone from just downloading, say, all of the reports from Arizona or all the research reports from North Carolina and feeding them into an AI to train them? I mean, I'm guessing that's fine. No one has any prohibitions against that. Should we have some kind of a legal disclaimer like Wyoming is putting out, or has any of your agencies talked about this issue at all? I can say for Oklahoma, we haven't really talked about this at all. So the way we're set up, we're renewed every year. Our library is renewed every year on a contract. And for this year's contract, we did actually put in some AI items to include, to at least let the agency know, hey, we are looking into AI and seeing what we can do. We haven't gone so far as to say we're going to ban all our reports from being fed into an AI machine, but I don't know if we need to go in that direction. Yeah, Cami, I see your hand up.
Thank you. All right, first, can you all hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, awesome. I always have to check. So as far as the concerns that the Arizona Research Center has about our reports being used for training AI models, it actually comes down to liability. In case the AI takes something from one of our reports, but misses context or phrases it incorrectly. And granted, with training, it very often doesn't come back to the source, but what if it does? And so it's like, can Arizona DOT be held responsible for anything that the AI comes up with? And so that's why, at least for now, we are avoiding it until we have a better policy. On a kind of a side note, though, my main role with the Arizona DOT is as an editor, and I can see a lot of ways that AI could help streamline my process. But we do, again, have privacy concerns, those liability concerns, and of course, it's still going to need a human to go through and make sure alt text and tables and just everything in a report is correct and 508 accessible. So I think it could help the process if done right, but we're not at that point yet.
Thank you, Cami. That's great. And those are really fantastic, great questions to ask too. Like, yeah, can a state be held responsible for what an AI produces? And I don't want to step too much over into the AI community of practice. Katie might come over and murder me or something, but just to say that we do, I think that AI really does affect Section 508 quite a bit, and we're seeing that more and more. So this, I think for this group, would it be helpful to come up with something tangible, either a policy or a statement? Like, for example, what YDOT has produced about prohibiting artificial training. Is there some kind of a clarification or a statement that you would like to have to bring back to your department on AI, either to cover you legally for liability or just to help investigate to see if your agency is even considering AI? Like, rather than just kind of talking about ideas, is there something that the group would like to have to bring back to their agency, either a policy or a statement or something about AI that can help maybe navigate this a little bit better? Because it really does seem like we're on a brave new frontier here, so. Or is there anything helpful relative to AI in Section 508 that you would like to have for your agency? Either a set of trainings, a content library, you know, it seems to be so much out there already. Like, where do you even start with AI in Section 508? I know Katie posted, definitely a fan of a policy statement, even if it's not used right away. Let's see. Oh, Cami, did you still have your hand up?
Sorry, no, I just forgot to put it down.
Okay, all right, you're fine. Right. So something tangible, something actionable, something that Lamar posted a basic overview to keep up with all of this. Maybe it's out there already. Yeah, that's a great question. Is there a basic overview of AI as it relates to Section 508? Maybe as it doesn't, just AI in transportation research. Um, I'm not aware of one. Maybe that's something we can go find out before our next meeting. But yeah, something to help keep track of all this, to at least not be blindsided by anything new that comes down the road. Like, maybe all of a sudden your department is like, we're going to invest in AI now, and it's up to you to know everything about it as a librarian. So, aha, Beth posted how to avoid bias in emerging technologies. This is really helpful. This is great. So it looks like there is some guidance on the federal level about AI. This is fantastic. Thank you. And we'll share this, make sure this is reflected in the link to the meeting as well when we post this on the LibGuide. So that's great. So yeah, kind of closing out this section on AI in Section 508. We got a couple people interested that maybe a policy might be helpful, maybe finding some kind of, what do latest emerging trends, what's new, what's coming up, just keeping tabs on it. I think that might be helpful. And maybe it's something for a LibGuide as well. Um, Beth, do we know, is there a LibGuide on AI? Uh, Actually, never mind. Scratch that. I think that's something the pooled fund is working on, actually. The pooled fund is working on an AI in transportation, and they're working with Enid White to help develop that. So look forward to that in the future. I think once that gets created, we can review this as a group and see if it relates to Section 508. So I don't want to get us too off topic, but yeah, there are definitely things coming down the road, and we can look up some policies and things and bring them back next time. So, and thank you for Beth. That's very helpful. All right. Actually, before we transition, I'd like to give Katie a chance to plug the NTKN AI community of practice. So Katie, if you'd like to say a few words about that.
Cool, thank you. I very much would. So we're still getting off the ground. We've had our first meeting. Our second meeting is Tuesday, July the 9th at 2 o'clock Central Time. So whatever that translates to for you. And these are kind of the things that we're exploring, exactly what AI can do and in what roles and in what capacity. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it both this? Is it neither? So we're still kind of picking a direction to go, and I would love to hear your suggestions. I am co-chairing along with Jeffrey Potter and Enid White and Rosalind. So any of us would be happy to talk to you. I do not have access to the mailing lists or anything like that. You would need to contact Enid for that. And I do not believe an invite has gone out, but I will double check. So thanks for that question, Penny.
Thank you so much, Katie. I missed out. I missed out, unfortunately, on joining the first AI meeting, so I look forward to joining the second one. So that's exciting stuff going on. Let me go ahead and transition a little bit. So Enid White, I was in conversation with her, and she had mentioned she sat in on a GSA IT accessibility webinar. I'm going to go ahead and post a link to that in the chat. You can see the presentation materials. They had a tables training worksheet PDF document that you can download. So this is getting into table accessibility. And she said that the tide seemed to be turning. It looks like they're really pushing for complex tables to be remediated in Adobe, and that they should not be placed as an image in documents. Because I know some folks have been pasting complex tables as images and relying on the alt text to describe the table. But apparently the government stance is that they be remediated and rather than placed as an image. Enid said that she asked if it was acceptable to insert images, and several people told her that they can be remediated, so that's what we should do. Yeah, so she said one person asked why her Section 508 team isn't making this happen, implying that we all have big, vast Section 508 teams that we can rely on to make those changes in a speedy manner. So I think Enid got a good chuckle out of that. And same with everyone else. I don't think any of us have a Section 508 team. Uh, LOL from Lamara. Exactly. Yeah, I think we're kind of the only ones doing it. So if anyone has a team, let me know, and I would love to outsource some things to them. So yeah, it looks like, at least from the meeting that Enid attended, inserting complex tables as images is a big no-no. They would prefer it to be remediated in Adobe. And so I think that may, correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, but that would probably reflect on the NTL, how we submit documents to the NTL. Do we know if, say, if we submit a document to the Transportation Library, would it be rejected if we have an image, a table as an image with appropriate alt text? Or is there a policy yet on this? Or is this just so far what one group decided, and maybe NTL doesn't have a policy just yet on it?
That's a great question. To my knowledge, NTL does not have a policy on this at this point. And we use the PDF checker in Adobe to check everything that's submitted. So it could get back to that point that if you're creating, if Microsoft Word has automatically created some alt text, it could also be creating some accessibility features for tables that would not pass the PD, or that would pass the PDF checker but are not actually useful. I'm not sure if that's happening with tables and PDFs. So yeah, the short answer is we don't have a policy on this yet.
Thank you, Beth, for clarifying. And oh, go ahead, Michael.
I think it's quite appropriate that you bring up tables today. I'm in the process of remediating a 337-page document, and I've had to strip away the page structure several times to fix an issue with an image. And when you are reinserting page structure for a table, I have found that even though it's a little bit frustrating, if you go cell by cell in Adobe, you're actually probably going to achieve a greater level of success compared to doing the entire table at once.
Wow. That sounds like a lot of work, Michael. Have you not pulled all your hair out at this point?
Well, the more I do it, the better I get at it. And like, for example, today, I stripped away the page structure, and then I drew a rectangular box around the entire table at once, and I tagged it as a table. And then I went to do the accessibility check just to verify that everything was fine, and it was showing me that the table had a regularity issue. And when I double checked, there was no regularity issue. It had all the rows had the same number of columns, all the columns had the same number of rows. I had my header cells, I had my data cells. But then when I looked at it a different way, it Adobe was convincing itself that the cells were getting smooshed together. So I stripped away the page structure again, and then I went cell by cell, and that fixed the problem. It added a few more steps, but now that I know, if I have to redo a table, then I'll just start from the most basic level and build upwards.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing that. That's how far we've come as far as, remediating and accessibility. That's quite a process and going cell by cell. But do you rely on the PI to do any of that work? Like, has your team, have you ever gone back and told them, hey, fix this in Word, or does it all just fall on you to get it done at the end of the day?
That is a great question, and that is a problem I will have for the rest of my career at this library. It depends on the PI. In some cases, the reaction that I get from them is so hostile that it it's better to do as much as I can on my end. The one area in which we push back the most is getting the research team to generate alternate text for their figures. As a non-subject matter expert, I can only do so much with respect to alt text, but with respect to things like the tag tree, reading order, of fixing when something is mistagged or something weird's going on, I'll just take care of that on my end. And what's strange, the PI for this report I'm working on right now, he did provide to us, both me and the CTR editor, the original Word document. And when I went through it and I was checking it for accessibility, it was fine. And then when I created the PDF, a whole raft of problems were created that were unexpected. And I'm having to go back and fix something. And it's disappointing because the PI did the correct thing, did the work, put in the alt text, was good to go. And there's something happened in the conversion process that fiddled with the original work. And now I'm having to come in and fix it on my end. But since I have the original Word doc with its original alternate text, it's just a lot of copying and pasting.
Wow. That's interesting. And that's crazy how so much can change in the conversion process. I've found when you do convert to PDF, convert a Word document to PDF and click convert, and you can also do save as PDF. And we found on multiple instances, depending on how you convert the document, different errors pop up. If you just do a wholesale convert, it may show no errors. If you do save as PDF, it may show some errors, or vice versa. So honestly, it's a gamble. We do both. We try both, and then whichever PDF comes out with less accessibility errors, that's the one we go with to try to remediate. So it's kind of a crapshoot. You never know what Adobe's going to pick up. So.
And let me warn everyone, if you have a Word doc and you convert by printing to PDF, your document, your resulting PDF will have absolutely no tag structure. Because when you print to PDF, it's essentially taking screenshots of each page. You get the external content that's on the top, but it doesn't take with it any of the internal structure of the document.
Have you had any success in completely retagging a document? Like there is an auto tag option has that worked well, or has that caused more problems than it's helped? If you've had experience with that, or if anyone
Yes.
has.
Yes, I have. When I get one of these PDFs that was created through the print to PDF process, I will try auto tagging it just to see what happens. And in some cases, Adobe does a reasonably good job of tagging the thing. And then if I go through the tag tree I'm just going page by page. There are certain things that I can fix pretty easily. I have noticed that for complex drawings or complex figures, especially if it's a collection of smaller figures, figure 5A, 5B, 5C, Adobe will oftentimes think the A, B, C, D, E, F is supposed to be a table instead of just part of a caption. But within the tag tree, you can just basically undo all of that and then retag as you wish. It's just something to look out for.
Thank you, Michael. Those are great points.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll mention that compared to 8 years ago when I first started in my position, I am demonstrably better at doing this, and it's nothing but trial and error. That's it. Just beating my head against the table until I'm able to do what's necessary, and then it's almost to the point at which it's fun. I'm not quite there yet, but I know that I enjoy it much more than I used to.
When it gets to the fun point, let me know. I would I would love to not be at that stage of banging my head so against the table. So, oh goodness. I would like to go ahead and share a quick link, a reminder link. This is a link to the pooled fund LibGuide for Section 508. And this LibGuide is a little different than the NTL main 508 LibGuide. This LibGuide specifically highlights documents created by the pooled fund for Section 508, including guidelines for preparing research reports, sample Word template that's Section 508 compliant. And I bring this up only to mention that our vendor for the pooled fund, CTC and Associates, who helped come up with these Section 508 documents, is going to be holding a webinar training over these documents and step-by-step making research reports Section 508 compliant. This will not be just for pooled fund members. Anyone is free to attend. So if you are interested in learning more about these documents, step-by-step making research reports 508 compliant, let us know. Will receive a link to the meeting. We're shooting for some time in September, probably late August, early September for this webinar. It will be recorded, so if you can't make it live, you can see the recording. But if you do make it live, it'll be your chance to ask questions from the team for Section 508. So excellent. Thank you, Lamar. I'll make sure you're added on our email list. So if you are interested, please let me know. You can shoot us an email afterwards, or we're going to be sending out emails to our pooled fund group as well as TranLib once the webinar is set. So look forward to that. Also, before we start wrapping things up, I want to just quickly recap. We've touched on a lot of different topics for our Section 508 community of practice. Thank you, Penny. Yes, I see in the chat. Glad there's some interest in that. So we've talked about some different topics, and so coming up, what are some topics that you would be interested that maybe haven't been covered in this community practice, or maybe you'd like to see some more coverage on? We've looked at tables, we've looked at alt text, we've looked at AI, we've looked at Word and PDF, we've looked at websites. Maybe there's a heading structure, maybe there's tagging you'd like to know more about, or maybe there's a problem that only you're having and maybe other people are having it and we just don't know about it. So I'd like to open up the floor. If there is a burning problem that you're having within your agency related to Section 508, let us know and we can bring that to the forefront. We can do some research and create some content and have an open discussion on how to address that topic. So I just like to throw it out to everyone. Is there anything going on in your agency that you're interested in relative to 508? Something you would like to see covered in a future COP meeting? Please let me know. Type it in the chat, raise your hand and say it, or however you'd like to communicate that, because I think we're always interested for new topic ideas. Oh, Katie mentioned could benefit from an FAQ guide of sorts, or is the pooled fund doing that already? Good question. So on that lib guide, there is a bit of there's a toolkit that has some FAQs for Section 508. There's a PDF for Section 508 accessibility guidance. but having a full-blown FAQ, that might be something, maybe that's something we could suggest for the NTL Section 508 LibGuide as well. And I do want to bring up, before Mary Moulton left, she had reached out to the group to see if anyone would be interested in helping update the Section 508 LibGuide on the NTL's main website. So maybe that is something we as a group could work on as well. Let me go ahead and bring up that LibGuide very quickly. Let me see if I can here. Now I have that saved somewhere. So the National Transportation Library has a LibGuide for Section 508 compliance. And please feel free to take a look at it and see if there are any areas that you would like to see expanded, updated, or maybe something's out of date. I know Michael Nugent had contributed some items to that LibGuide for inclusion. And Beth is graciously going to be the point of contact if anyone wanted to add anything or suggest anything for that LibGuide. So maybe that is something we as a community could look at as well and see if there's anything we'd like to add to that. So I think big takeaway from this meeting is there is some need, going back to AI, for some kind of policies for agencies governing AI and accessibility. Also, we may need to think of some new topics that we'd like covered for our COP meetings, and also seeing if we need to remediate the current NTL Section 508 LibGuide. So I know those are big three things that we might want to work on in future meetings. Does anyone have any questions or comments about any of those items, or even going back to topics that you would like to see in COP meetings going forward? Maybe you'd like to see more done on alt text, maybe revisiting tables, maybe looking at equations, maybe looking at tagging and structure, or maybe those weird random problems that pop up in Adobe that we have no idea what they mean, weird little errors. I know I get those all the time and I don't know how to solve them sometimes. So and if not, if you'd rather save your comments for afterwards, please feel free to either post in the chat or send me an email afterwards. And we'll be happy to look at those topics and see if we can put together a good program for this summer and going into the fall, a good program of topics that we can talk about and discuss. Because I think we've spent a lot of time discussing things, and it might be good to have some actionable or tangible items that we can either bring back to our agency or put together in some kind of a LibGuide or package that can help benefit the community as a whole. So just some ideas, just some spitballing offhand. So if that sounds interesting to anyone, let me know and we can see how we can pursue that. So we do have 12 minutes left in our meeting. I know I'm sure a lot of folks might be appreciative if we gave back the time to folks. Before we do, are there any last minute questions or comments you'd like to share with the group? All right. If not, I want to thank this group for attending our regular meeting. So it's always a great discussion when everyone shows up. So big thank you for taking time out of your day to attend and provide your thoughtful comments and questions and contributions. And going back to Gabby, I think that, again, that's a great topic of difference between corporate and public librarian and the things we need to consider with how we handle research and materials in general. So maybe we can talk about that, maybe have them do a side conversation or something. It may not have to do with Section 508, but maybe it'd be a good TLR or something like that. So anyway, just suggestions, ideas. So thanks again, everyone. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and looking forward to seeing you at our next meeting, which is going to be in August. So thanks again. Have a good afternoon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.